guys. This is a test. Is our audio working? Let me know. Type it in. Can you hear me? Type it in.
All right, yes, it's working.
Okay. Is it good? We're good?
Okay, explain what's going on here.
Okay. Hey there, babies. What's going on? Obviously, we're a little bit of a hot mess today, but that's all right. You know, we're doing great. Session 10 will be aired later. We're going to do the Q&A now. We're going to flip-flop it. And yeah, so you guys have read session 10. Let me start by talking about it. But first, also, I just realized Tecate, which is like the PBR of the West, they have a hawk on their can. So I felt like this was like a perfect Atreides Dune Club beer. We're heading into the beer leagues, guys. We're like deep. We're like in book 3 deep. We're in there, you know? And I wonder about like how many people out there are reading Dune, because I know we have about 300 on Twitch, on the Twitch streams on Sunday who can make it. But like we're getting like still like 12,000 last time I checked on our last Dune Club session upload on YouTube. So I wonder like how many people exactly are reading Dune right now, you know, like in this summer. I know a lot of you have already finished. No worries, dude. It's so good. Like you can't stop. Like I get it. Like I want you. That's another thing. I want you guys to keep reading that book if it's fucking awesome. Like I'm not gonna tell you to stop reading a book. Reading books are great. So if you tear through it, whatever, man. Just make sure to write some notes. So when we come back to the sessions, you can kind of like reload it in your brain, know where you're at, and then we can talk about it. So in this session, in session 10, we have, it's 2 years later. It's about 2 years later. We first see the Baron Harkonnen and Gidi Prime, and he has just survived an assassination attempt by Fade Rautha. He figures it out immediately, is like screaming at Nefud, who's like fucked up on Samutta, like listening to the fucking weird music and like getting all fucked up. Cause like the Samutta drug is like, it's just like this aesthetic drug where you take it and then you play the specific music and it just sounds like so great and you just get like really like it's amazing. It's this amazing experience. And but it's just a narcotic. It doesn't like really give you anything in return. It just is kind of like a pleasure drug. And so he's like all fucked up on this shit. Baron is like, where's Fade? You know, like, what the fuck? You know, he's like, oh, he's in the slave quarters with the women, you know, and it's just, oh, the Baron's just like knows that, like, there's so much fuckery afoot. And Nefud wasn't in on it, but he was played by Fade, like, because he's an idiot, because he's a fucking idiot. It's like you hired a fucking, like, heroin addict to be your fucking captain of the guard. So, so while he's yelling at Nefud, like, Fade comes in and he's just like, oh, hey, what's up? The Baron's just like, dude, okay, you just got here. Like, yeah, I definitely know you're in on it, you dumb bitch. And so, yeah, like, he catches Fade. He just, like, kills as many of his people that he can figure out. Like, anyone that Fade implicated in this moment, in this conspiracy, he killed all of them. Like, there's, like, 2 guards, the slave master from the gladiatorial games, like, his dude. And then like I don't know, some other bitches. So, oh yeah, and then okay, we'll get to that later. So he's like, the Baron's like, okay, Fade, like seriously, like when they're alone, he's like, you gotta stop trying to kill me because I'm gonna try to put you on the throne, and like when the time comes, I'll step aside and I'll just be an advisor, you know, like he'll be like I don't know, I don't want to say it. He'll be like, whatever. He'll be in the background telling Fade what to do, whispering in his ear, that's what you need to do. And he'll still be running things. But Fade will look like he's the Baron, even though he's really, his uncle's still just really doing it from behind the curtain. Which, I mean, sounds good to Fade, but honestly, it's like, that's still a shitty thing. Like, he'll still be controlling you. Like, that's the thing about Fade is like, the Baron doesn't want him to rule as a leader. He just wants to rule through him constantly, like, because he just doesn't believe that he can do it, and like hasn't tried to. I don't know, like it's not like Paul, you know. They're trying to make Paul as self-sufficient as possible. The Baron is just like, no, he's not that self-sufficient, so I'll just be self-sufficient for him, and then like tries to like live through him constantly. He's like a living doll, you know. And so yeah, so like Fade's like, fuck, I'm caught. And then he's like, I have to do whatever the Baron asks. So the Baron's like, you know, okay, stop trying to kill me. I'll put you on the Imperial throne. And I'm gonna put Thufir on you all the time, which, you know, Thufir's been working with him to begin with. So like Thufir's kind of playing both ends against the middle. And yeah, so he's like, okay, fine. And then they go, and then, okay, at the end though, the Baron's like, oh, and I'm gonna need you to kill all the women in the pleasure wing. Because if you remember at the beginning of the conspiracy, he says the excuse he gave to Nefud was that he was with the slave women, and that's where like Nefud thought he was. And so he doesn't, so the Baron knows that someone in the slave wing would be a spy for him and be like, oh yeah, he was with me, you know, like somebody would cop to it. But because the Baron doesn't know which of those slave women in the pleasure wing are within Fade's spy system, he's like, you're going to have to kill all of them with your bare hands, and I'm going to watch you do it. Like, and I'm going to sit there and watch. And it's just like, oh man, it's like so intense, like really crazy. And then we see the Baron talking to Thufir, and like Thufir's like, you're a dumb piece of shit. Like, obviously there's like 10 million Fremen on the planet. Like, Baron, or Raban's an idiot, but we could use this to our advantage. We could make Arrakis like a military training planet where we pool recruits from the Fremen to make our army, which is essentially what Leto was going to do. And that's why Leto got cut out of the herd, because the Emperor found out that Leto's war masters were training a group of men almost as good as the Sardaukar. Almost as good. And he was like, oh no, we can't have this really charismatic guy with like a really fucking badass force that's like larger than my force. Like, I can't have that. So that's why he took out Leto. So Howard says, like, we got to do this on the down low. It's going to be on the super down low. And he thinks that, like, he's going to be able to apply these dudes with just, like mansions and shit. You know, he's like, oh, we'll just get these Fremen and we'll take them up and we'll be like, you know, like fill them with this mystique that their plan is a secret training ground and make them feel superior. And then we're going to give them, like, money and women and mansions. And it's like, it's so funny because it sounds, okay, that makes sense. Like, that would work on most people, but that's not going to work on the Fremen. You know, that might work on a prison planet where you have a bunch of prisoners and you can, like, do that, but that's not going to work with the Fremen, who are, like, this, like, spiritual unit group whose, like, only desire is to see Arrakis become a livable place and to have their fucking freedom. You know, like, they want their freedom, they want their planet, they want people to fuck off, they want to make money off their planet. Like, they've been forced to, like, live here. They're living here. Like, let them have their fucking planet. Like, that's all the Fremen want, is their fucking planet. They want control of their planet. But their planet just so happens to control the universe because that's where spice comes from. So, yeah. So this is like this. It's the header for this chapter is so good because it's talking about how what is it? Like, there's a deep need, a pervasive need in the human mind that, like, a need for logic. For a logical universe that makes sense. That's what it is. A logical universe that makes sense. And, but the real universe is always one step beyond logic. You know, it is. It's always one step beyond you. Like, you always think you're like, haha, I see you, universe. And then they throw some other bullshit in your path. And you're like, oh, fuck, you got me. Like, you know, that guy's crazy. Like, the universe is always ahead of you. And so the universe being ahead of Hawat, like, yes, his plan makes sense. It is logical. Okay, it is not going to work at all. This is the worst plan. Like, he's giving the Baron the worst plan ever because Paul and Jessica have already been there. They have already bonded with the Harkonnens over there, or bonded with the Fremen over their Harkonnen oppression that they both share. They've both been fucked over by the Harkonnens. So they're like, yes, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. You know, like, we're going to team up because these people have been, like, so shitty. And also, they have been, like, filling them with mystique, but their own mystique from the Missionaria Protectiva Okay, like they've been doing the spiritual mystique, religion, that's what they've been sowing. So like Hawat's like, nope, it's not gonna work. And then Hawat thinks that like the Fremen are so mundane and base as to just be bought off with trinkets like women and shit like that. You know, it's like these people are not gonna be bought off. These people want their true freedom, that or get the fuck out, you know, like that's the deal. And that's what Paul has, like, Paul's also said, I'm going to give you that shit. So it's like, man, Howard is just beaten already. It's like, it's already checkmate, and he hasn't even, like, started his fucking plan. That's how good Paul is. You know what I'm saying? So that was really good. I like that chapter a lot. Then we go back to Arrakis. And again, it's been 2 years. Paul is 18 years old now. He's had a baby. He has a baby with Chani. Like, they have totally just got right to it and got that baby going, you know? But it's like, at the same time, what are you going to do? Like, he's got this hot girl quoting religious scripture at him, saying, woman is thy field. Go then to thy field and till it, you know? And it's like, what? Like, this religious scripture is saying, have sex with me right now, you know? And it's like, oh my God, like for Paul, like that's, like there's, yes, like those two. But the thing is like there's trouble in paradise because Paul's mom, Jessica, who's kind of like the fucking mother-in-law here. She's like the mother. Can you imagine Jessica being your, like the Reverend Mother Jessica being like that's your mother-in-law? Like that's a really intimidating mother-in-law. She's really bitchy about Chani or Cheney, however you say it. And so yeah, anyways, so Paul is like in the desert. He's getting ready to ride the worm for the first time. He's gonna ride the fucking worm. He has to do this so he can be a full Fremen. This is something Fremen boys age 12 do. This is a 12-year-old's rite of passage. And so he's 18, and they're like, well, it's time for you to do this. If you're really gonna lead us, we need you to become a sand rider, because then you truly are one of us. It's like the bar mitzvah of Fremen culture is riding the worm. So like, how cool is that though? Like versus, you know, like the sand riding. That's a cool fucking rite of passage. I think we need to get back to that, especially for boys. Like they don't really have anything. I mean, they have some things, but anyways, okay, so it's the morning before he has to do this test, and like he's eaten a bunch of spice the night before, and as usual, he's just like tripped out. Like it's tripping him out. He's dreaming, but he's like a prescient, lucid dreamer. So like when he dreams, it's not like when we dream. It's like when he dreams, he's like in the fucking future, and like he's he's everywhere at once. You know, he can be anywhere at once. He's the Kwisatz Haderach. He's in the future, he's in the present, he's in the past. And so when he's sleeping, and like right before you wake up, when you're in that hazy state, he's like, where the fuck am I? He can't even remember where the fuck he is. He's like, where am I in time? You know, it's like, I don't remember where the fuck I am. Where the fuck am I? I am like tripping balls like a lot in this desert, and it's pretty crazy. It's really intense. And he's just like, I'm a theater of processes. It's like a theater of processes. What a fucking thing to say about yourself. And so, anyway, so he's trying to like probe through his memories. He's like, did this happen, or is this from the future? Like he looks back at his memories, and then some of his memories are from the future. And they're things that haven't happened yet, but that can happen, but are subject to change. You know, it's like, what a mind fuck that is. But he remembers where he is. He's like, oh yeah, I'm here. I gotta ride this worm today. My girl's with me. She's there. She's like gonna do the side of the watch thing, make sure the rights are obeyed, you know, but she's also like worried because, you know, it's a big deal. And you could die or get hurt doing this. I mean, this is a crazy fucking thing. You got to plant Thumper. You have to have a worm come up to eat the Thumper and investigate it, you know. And then while they're coming up, you ride alongside it. You have your maker hooks, some hooks, and then you try to like hook it into the ring segment, and then like I guess twist them back so that it pops the ring segment up. And then when that does that, and they'll be hooked in there, the worm will start to turn to take you with, you got to hold on to your hooks. You hold on to your hooks, and then you go up to the top, because it doesn't want that segment that's been injured to be near the sand, because if sand gets in there, oh, it's super itchy. Nobody likes sand in their underwear, you know, like sandworm does not want sand in his underwear either. So he goes all the way up to the top, and then you ride them around. I mean, I don't know how much control you have over them though. Like I don't know like how you steer them. Like how do you steer one? Is it just like they pop up and you just like get on one and then they're just going that direction? I don't know. You know, maybe we'll learn more about that later. I can't remember exactly. But yeah, so he's going to do that shit today. And then, like, you know, Stilgar is giving him advice. You know, he's like, don't you shame my teaching. Like, oh, he's so excited. And that's the thing that's so awesome about Stilgar. Is like, Stilgar's training this guy that he knows is going to take over for him, who's stronger than him, that can challenge him and kill him for leadership of the tribes. But even though he knows this, he does everything in his power to help Paul. He does everything in his power to be like a good surrogate dad. Like Paul has the best surrogate Fremen dad. Like he could totally ask for. Like it's like really good. Paul has like the best mentors in the universe. Like he's had the best mentorship. And that's something I was like growing up, I always like felt like I wanted like some badass mentors, but I felt kind of like cheated and robbed. Like I never felt like I didn't get any like cool magical mentors. In my opinion, but I was wrong. Everything's your teacher. Like that's the thing I had to learn. It's like there are teachings all around you all the time, bitch. Like so. Anyways, so Stilgar's like, yeah, like don't do anything fancy. You don't have to do anything fancy. Just fucking do it, you know. And so Paul's like, okay, I gotta do this. You know, he's like, I gotta fucking do this, and he gets ready. And then we cut as usual because Frank Herbert is like, no. We're not going to show he never shows like the big moment, you know, he always cuts away from the big moment and then picks up later afterwards where you know, it's like, and I never noticed that before, but now that I've been reading it with you guys, totally noticed that's a thing in his writing. I noticed a lot of stuff about Frank Herbert in this writing. Like, okay, Frank Herbert is like, I think that he was kind of like a cranky dude a little bit. I think that he really liked his silence. I think that he needed to work in full silence, like, because he's got a lot of shit in his head, and like for whatever reason he just cannot tune out of that like shit, and so he needs meditative, deep silence, you know, to get his shit done, and that's how he works. And it's like I see that throughout this book. Like I see so many things that he writes. So he's like, oh, like like they have a meditation room. That in this chapter, Paul kills a man. Or Chani kills a man in the siege who came to challenge Paul because she was like, he was such a piece of shit that I didn't even want to like bother your meditation. Like she is so about him that she would just dispatch this guy and murder him, kill him because she didn't think he was worthy of like disturbing his meditation. Like that's how good a girl Chani is. It's like, whoa. And then in this next chapter with Jessica, now we're with Jessica, deep in the south. It's 20 thumpers deep. I don't know if that means that you ride one worm and you put like a thumper every so often to like keep him going, or if that means that you have to ride 20 different worms down there. But I think it might mean 20 because you call one worm with a thumper and then it comes. And then you can ride that dude, but you can't ride him forever. So maybe like they get tired. They're like horses, they get tired. So you have to stop and like get off. And then you gotta call a new one. And you have to do that 20 times. Maybe that's like the deal. I don't know. I'm just speculating here. You tell me what you think. So she's in this new siege. And in this new siege, like we're talking about like Paul, Chani, dispatchment. Okay, yeah. So, Reverend Mother Jessica is kicking it in the siege. She's kicking it. She knows that it's Paul's day, but no one's told her because they don't want to worry her about it. And it's like, you know, she can't do anything about it anyways. But she knows what's happening. She's trying not to worry about it, and she thinks to herself, oh, you know, I wish I could get a cup of coffee. And like immediately somebody comes in, whoop, sets this down, gives her a cup of coffee, and yeah, so she gets a Tecate. It's got a Atreides hawk on it. It's awesome. So yeah, so she gets this cup of coffee, and she's just like, dang, like first of all, how cool is it that I can just drink a cup of coffee that somebody just gives me? I think about it, like the Fremen people are so tight Like their community is so tight that it verges on precognition because they act as like kind of one being. They try to live as one being so they can survive in this horrible fucking planet. And like, so because of that, these synchronicities happen all the time where you think about it, you want something and then somebody just gives it to you. And not only that, she is, where else in the Imperium could somebody who's like this big leader, she's like a top, like she's the top of the spiritual leadership of the entire Fremen nation at this point. Like that's a really high, that's a station, you know? But like where else in the Imperium could somebody that high up be able to just drink a cup of coffee without having a poison snooper over it? Like everyone in the great houses, like they can't just drink a cup of coffee that somebody sets on a table next to them from a hand from behind a curtain. You don't even know who put it there. They can't do that. Because at the top, like people are trying to fucking murder your ass like all the time. Like it sucks. And Jessica's like, wow. You know, I know it's harsh in the desert, but like, fuck, this is pretty cool. Like this is an awesome thing that like I really enjoy. So, but the thing that the Frank Herbert part of that scene was she also goes on to think to herself, you know, and what a respectful culture, you know, or what a culture that would have such care and respect for my comfort as to, you know, not inflict, like just deposit the gift without inflicting me with the donor, you know, like whoever had come was like, hi, I just want to give you a cup of coffee. What's going on, River Mother? Like they don't even fuck with her. They just put it. She's getting the star treatment is what she's getting. Like this is what happens to like A-list celebrities, like on sets and stuff. Like people just like give them whatever they want and like whatever they even think about it. And like, they don't talk to you. They keep their eyes, you know, down. She's like, man, that's great. You know, like, and you know that Frank Herbert wanted that. He wanted it to where people like would bring him a coffee or bring him food or whatever. He wanted people to, he wish he had a wife who could like read his mind, know when he's hungry, and then like deposit some food for him while he's like thinking about his stuff and working on his things, and then not even say a word, just deposit it and leave in silence. You know, that's how much he liked silence. Like this man loves silence. He is a big fan. I wonder if he had like one of those tanks, so like a sensory deprivation tank, because that like you can't. I mean, you can hear your own drips if you're splashing around, but if you're still. I did one of those things once, a sensory deprivation tank. It was like really intense. I found out where all my muscles were tight. That's what I found out. It wasn't like an awesome meditative experience. I was just like, oh wow, my back muscles were really tight right there. I can really feel it now that I'm floating in weightlessness, and I can feel exactly how tight those are. And it's really fucked up. I wish I had gotten a massage before I did this, so I can really enjoy it like mentally. But okay, so Jessica's kicking it, but there's trouble in paradise. Hera comes in. She's dragging Alia in. And Alia is Paul's little sister. It's the first time we've met her. She is about 2 years old. And she is in trouble again, you know. And like, I love her little insult that she gives to Hera. I love that she's like, oh, like, she's like, my brother's Ganima is like angry with me again. And Ganima is like a spoil of war. Like if you defeat someone, then like you get their bow and arrow or whatever. But now it's like just a trophy. It's not even like you don't use it for anything. And so that's what she's saying Hera is, because Paul did win her after he killed Jamis, and she is kind of like a spoil of war, and that she isn't being used. Like it's known that she wanted to get with Paul, but he declined her, you know, and she's like a little bummed about it. And so like this is Alia being like making some fucking cruel jab about that. Like she knows exactly what Hera is insecure about, and then she fucking insults her with it. But Hera is such a strong fucking bitch. Like I love Hera. Like Hera is such an unsung character, because in these books, like this woman is just like, man, you talk about wisdom from the desert. She's just like the ultimate fucking like badass woman. Like she's just like there and always gives everybody like the right piece of advice at the right time. And like she's born of nobody. She's from nowhere. You know, she's in the middle of the Fremen, whatever. She does not have royal blood or training or whatever the fuck, and yet she's holding her own with all these motherfucking snooty royal bitch asses, you know, like who are crazy, like Jessica and Paul are like these psychic, crazy, fucking weird motherfuckers. But she's able to like roll with them, and then not only that, be able to fucking like actually touch them, and like, you know, they take they take Hera's advice. Like, she gives them advice at certain points that is like the true, you know? She has that like fucking wisdom, you know? Hera's a badass. So Hera being a badass, Hera loves Alia. She's like, and like Alia's first words were, "I love you, Hera." Like, "I love you, Hera," like a fucking sentence. Like, oh, it's so weird. Hera knows that Alia has never been a little girl, that she's always been pretending because she's taken care of her since she was a baby. And the thing is like, since Alia was a baby, she's never been like, she became a fully adult aware, extra aware Reverend Mother motherfucker while in the womb. Like, in the womb, she had an adult consciousness, and then she had all these other consciousnesses downloaded into her, including her own mother's. And then she knows she's in the womb now. She's aware of what's happening to her. She knows that she's going to be born. Like, can you imagine, like, being in a womb right now? Like, being a thinking person. You're in the womb, and you're like, oh, wow, I'm going to get squeezed out of my mom's vagina pretty soon. Like, that's probably going to hurt, you know, and you got to feel that. You got to feel, like your bones, like, sliding over your head when you, like, pop out. And then, like, not only that, you, while you're in the womb, you can think about the very night that you got conceived. Because she has Jessica's memory. So she can remember the night that Jessica had with Leto in intimate detail, know exactly what positions happened. Like, she's got the whole fucking thing recorded. It's like, it's VOD content for her. She's got a lot of VOD content. Like, so much. So yeah, so Alia's weird, okay? She's an old woman in a baby body who's waiting for her body to develop so that she can just be who she is, which is a fucking old Reverend Mother lady, like some crazy being, you know? I mean, she's so unique in the universe. Like, just like Paul is unique, Alia is also very unique. she's also a very unintended Bene Gesserit product. Like, Jessica did two crazy things. Jessica said no when she's supposed to have a girl and had a boy instead. That's fucking unheard of, okay? Like, people don't do that in the Bene Gesserit. Like, that's a big fucking deal. Like, you get sent to, like, if they catch you, like, they're gonna punish you for that, okay? And it's gonna be bad. Like, whatever they're gonna do to you, like, they're gonna fuck your shit up. And so this is kind of like, you know, her punishment was like, for the father, nothing, you know, like, we're not gonna do anything for him, you know, and we know exactly what's getting ready to happen to you, and we're not gonna stop it, you know? So, and then, okay, so Jessica does that. And then she goes on to have what is called, and we haven't gotten to this yet, but we're going to go over it. Alia has what is called an abomination. The Bene Gesserit call her an abomination because it's happened before. I mean, they've been experimenting with this, like, these drugs, you know. But also, this is like the seed of life ceremony, which is the water of life. And I don't think that the Reverend Mothers have the water of life. They have something else. The Bene Gesserit Reverend Mothers have been using something else at this time. Although once the water of life is discovered, then that becomes the main thing that they use for Reverend Mothers. It's a little hazy. I'm not 100% sure. I've read conflicting things about it. But I guess, like, yeah, when she took this stuff, the Bene Gesserit know, and the thing is, Jessica didn't know. I mean, she doesn't know, but she knew, she wasn't completely innocent. She knew that, like, her daughter was going to get fucked up. Like, something was going to happen to her. Like, this was going to affect her in some way. But she just was like, I'm in a position where I can't do anything else. And so she's like, you know, I mean, they'll pay for this later. Like, there is, like, for doing this, there is a cost. You know, there is a cost later that comes into play. But that's in the next, like, 2 books, especially in Children of Dune. But, like, okay, so yeah, so Jessica's had, like, 2 crazy babies, and so now we're looking at Alia, and, like, Hera's like, you know, Alia tells her about everything in the womb, and Hera's like, okay, because, like, all they're gonna do is have Hera go out. She's gonna do PR for Alia. Hera's gonna be Alia's PR manager, and Hera's gonna go out and be like, hey guys, did you know that during the Water of Life ceremony, like, Jessica was pregnant, and when she did that, it changed her, and that this girl is actually also a Reverend Mother. Like, this is not a little girl. It looks like a little girl. This is not a little girl, okay? This is an old woman who's had Just as a little girl who has the consciousnesses of all these old women for thousands of years and her own mother's consciousness in her. And she's a Reverend Mother, and like, so just be chill. Like, of course, she doesn't want to play with other kids. Why would she? She's not a kid. She does not want to play with other kids. Like, she doesn't, she wants to talk with somebody like an adult would talk with somebody, but she can't because she's like, has to have nap time and her soft palate isn't formed. And like, it's just like, what a fucking crazy experience. Ollie is so nuts. And it's like, you know, Paul thinks he's a freak and she like thinks she's a freak too, you know, and like, that must hurt Jessica so much because both of her kids, you know, she's heard of both of her kids say, I'm a freak. And like, she's the mom and she did this to both of them. And like, they're both like bummed on it. And she has to kind of deal with that and be like, yeah, like you're not, but yeah, I'm complicit in all this. So, but while they're, okay, so they talk about this. And then while they're talking, like the nightly prayer happens. And I really like the nightly prayer because it shows you Fremen culture every night at a certain time. They stop what they're doing, you know, because this is very much based on Islam. Like the Fremen, the base like that Frank Herbert used to create the Fremen religion is like base Islam, but he added in some, but like Sufi Islam specifically. Like he was accessing the more mysticism side of Islam because every single one of the Abrahamic religions, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, if you didn't know, all came from the same like original story of like Abraham and like Genesis and all that stuff. Like they all agree on that. But then after Abraham, it was like everybody had their own like thing. So, okay, so each of those have their own mysticism. Like you have like Christian mysticism, a lot of people like refer to Gnosticism. That's Gnosticism is a word for Christian mysticism. But it's actually means a lot of different things. It's weird. Kabbalah is the Judaic mysticism, and then Sufi is the Islamic mysticism. So anyways, so every night they have their prayer. They all have to stop what they're doing, and they recite these chants to one another, and it relives this moment. It talks about how the slave raids, because these people, they used to be on a planet, like 4 planets ago, they were on this bomb-ass planet, and things were cool, and then shit went bad. The slave raiders came, they trapped them, they killed a bunch of them, they took them as slaves, and took them to another planet to drop them off. So then when they're on that planet, they have to, you know, be the populace that, you know, does whatever they need. The native populace who needs to like run whatever things are going on there. And that's happened to them like 3 times. Like, it's happened to them like 3 times. Like they've been like slaved over and slaved over and slaved over and like taken to the worst and worst and worst place. And this is done by the Imperium. Like slavery exists in the Imperium. There are sex slaves that we've seen. I mean, the Bene Gesserit, they don't sell themselves as slaves, but they sell themselves. Like, you go to the Bene Gesserit school and you buy a soothsayer. You know, you buy a concubine. Like, they sell themselves. Like, so there is, like, this thing going on. And so, yeah, so these people have just been so oppressed over so long, and they just, like, have this whole chant every night where they talk about how oppressed they've been. And they're like, remember that time thousands of years ago where shit was awesome and then everything got fucked up? Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that's fucking sucked. And then they get upset over it and they're like, you know, feel those feelings. They renew their grief every night with one another. At the same time, they do this prayer, you know, it's like, that has an effect in the universe. Like when you have that many people thinking and feeling the same thing, like at the same time, every day, day after day after day after day, like they're going to attract, like that's going to put intention out in the universe, and they're going to attract whatever they've been praying for. And like they have with Paul, like that's what's so like, it's nature and it's nurture. Like, yeah, Paul was a product that he was like, I mean, they tried to breed a Messiah. They bred a Messiah. They bred a super being, a divine being, an immortal, you know, whatever. They made that bridge. But I don't know. It's crazy. Okay, moving on. So now, like Paul in the chapter before was like, okay. He was thinking before he got on the worm. He's like, these Fremen, like they live with like grief and anger, like all of their days. Like they live with this grief and anger all of their days. Like they have their ecological dream, but like what's gonna happen when they find their freedom? Like what's gonna happen? Because he's like, I'm gonna find their freedom for them. But like what's gonna happen to this culture that I love, that I have fallen in love with, I mean, that he's just like, has a wife, I mean, she's not a wife, but like, I mean, he's in deep with the Fremen people, you know what I'm saying? So he's worried about what's going to happen to them if he gives them their freedom, because the reason that their culture is so beautiful, the thing at the heart of their culture is things like this nightly prayer. It is their suffering. Their suffering is what makes them beautiful. It's like having this harsh weather has band them together in a way that no other people live in the universe. And they have this beautiful society that they've created that could only be here. That, I mean, they're called the Fremen, which is like a play on the free men. Like, even though they are the most downtrodden, the most oppressed, the most enslaved of any people in the Imperium, they are the most free. Because the Imperium, like what the fucking Emperor was saying, he's like, they live outside the Frofrolux. And they do. And by living outside of that, they do have true freedom, even though it is oppression on all sides. It's like Jessica, what she was thinking about how, yeah, it's fucked up here, and like they gotta live like really crazy, but like it's fucking tight. Like these people are cool. Like this place is awesome. I just think I get a cup of coffee. Like I don't have to worry about being poisoned. Like it's a beautiful culture that they love. But then if they give them what they want, they're gonna it's gonna destroy them. Like they're not going to be like these. They're not going to be this. If their planet is more livable and they can like drop their guard and they can not be so like, I mean, they have to be on their guard all the time. So they're these like constantly vigilant, like superior specimen people. You'd have to be a superior specimen to be able to survive that. And they are augmented by the spice. But yeah, so I don't know, it's an interesting question. I really like seeing this nightly prayer. I thought that was a really fascinating moment where it's like, oh, okay, like I see what you're doing, Frank Herbert. Like, thanks for showing me that. That totally makes sense. But man, that's crazy though. It's like that every night. They're like, we're pissed. We never forgive. We never forget. Like we're pissed every night. They get together and say that. But then, okay, so right after that, Stilgar's wife comes in and is like, hey guys, we got a problem. If Paul rides the worm today, which we all know he's going to ride the worm today, the young men are going to force him to call Stilgar out for leadership of the tribes. And like, we can't have that because that means Paul's going to kill Stilgar. And we all know that Paul's going to kill Stilgar. But like, we don't need Paul to kill Stilgar because like, Stilgar's badass. You don't need to kill him. Like, you don't need to do that. And Ollie and Jessica are like, yeah, we really don't need to do that. And then Hera's like, yeah, and we really don't need to kill Stilgar because like, me and her have talked and I'm just going to leave your son's household. I'm going to stop being kind of like the fucking chick who's like the babysitter and who takes care of the house and everything. She's like, I'm going to be a wife to Stilgar and we're going to share him. And, it's all set up. It's all set up. So I can't have him die because then I'll be stuck babysitting for you guys. And like, that's not really what I want to do for the rest of my life, And Jessica's like, okay, well, I agree. Like, we need to like make sure he doesn't die. And that's totally cool, And then while Hera is on such familiar terms with Jessica, because she normally isn't on such familiar terms with Jessica, because Jessica's a fucking Reverend Mother, she's really scary. Because she is, she also adds before she leaves, she's like, and by the way, stop being a bitch about Paul's girl, Chani. Stop being a bitch about her. Stop being a bitch about her, because that girl is ride or die. And that girl, like, if you need a royal marriage for your son and like this whole plan and blah, 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 it's like Chani's going to be the first one to get the fuck out of the way. Like, she's not going to like try to fuck this up for Paul. Like, she's not going to, like, she is down for whatever. But at the same time, you can't get rid of her. Like, she just had the first, she just had an Atreides baby. Like, she just had an Atreides baby, the first one, Paul's heir. Like, she's here. She's not going anywhere. So, like, yeah, there might be a marriage in the future, but like, chill out on her. Like, don't be a bitch to her because some future bullshit. And Jessica's like, it's like to get a Reverend Mother to go, like, I don't know what to say. Like, to do that to a Reverend Mother, you have to be a really powerful motherfucker. And Hera, again, it's like Hera is such an unsung hero. Like, she's so real. Like, Hera's got that real talk, you know? Like, Hera's got that real talk ready for, like, anybody who's, like, acting like they're better than whatever, you know? I think that's really cool. So that was it for the thing. You know, I'm just gonna, yeah, I gave you an impromptu retelling of it. So I'm going to go into the Patreon questions. We got a whole bunch. We got like 39. So let me go through these. Also, man, thank you guys for hanging in there with me. Obviously, we've had a really crazy week. And, yeah, like Vicky's out of town. She's at this wedding. And so it's just like me and T. And like, oh my God, it's just like we need a third person here. Like, this is like way, but we didn't have anybody, and our other guy, Andy, he was already on, he was like, he's fucking booked for the next 18 days. So it's like, we're doing our best here. So thanks for hanging in with us. So James Garner asks, so in this section, Alia gets really gets introduced, and she's one of my favorite characters. One thing I think is fascinating is how Alia, Jessica, and the old Reverend Mother that Jessica took the place of bear a strong resemblance to the cult idea of the Maiden Mother and Crone. What do you think about the significance of this in Dune, and how, in a sense, Jessica, it seems to me, is resisting her own transition into the role of Crone, while Chani is kind of transitioning into the next mother? Yeah, that's absolutely going on. I mean, that's what we were just talking about, is like, Jessica is, she's Paul's mother, but like, Paul has a kid now. So she's kind of like, you know, queen regent, you know what I mean? It's like, she's like, like, I mean, Paul's above her, whatever. She knows her station, but like, she is the Fremen leader of spiritual leader. And, but yeah, it is a transitional period. So, and those periods are always awkward. There's always going to be awkwardness going on. And so that's why I like that Hera addressed that. Like, Hera saw what was going on and was like, okay, I see what you guys, I know you guys are so smart. I know you're fucking so smart. Oh, you know everything in the world, Reverend Mother. But, you know, you need to stop being a bitch. Because, like, she's becoming the mother. You're becoming the crone. Like, it's totally fine. It's totally chill. Like, just, like, let it happen, girl. But yeah, but I think that, I mean, even though Jessica's been a little bitchy about it, she hasn't been a cunt about it, though. I mean, she hasn't, like, you know, trying to forbid anything or, you know, try to be like a total asshole. She's just like, Paul and Chani just sense that she's like, ugh. But at the same time, they're like fucking 18, okay? Like they're 18, they're teen parents. They're teen parents. Of course, the mom is going to be a little worried about these teen fucking parents. Like, that's, yeah, like, that's not the deal. Like, she was not a teen parent. Like, she was like in her 20s, you know, and so was Leto. Like, so, yeah, so it's like, that, I mean, they got this teen mom Arrakis, you know, it's crazy. So, yeah, but there's totally, and that's the thing that I really love about, you know, Frank Herbert, is Frank Herbert, as I was talking about earlier, he talks about, like, a lot of different religions and a lot of different philosophical traditions, or theosophical, I should say, it's like theosophical. Like, he talks about so many of them, and he puts them all in there, and yes, like, you know, Islam and Judaism and, you know, Kabbalah and, you know, Gnosticism, meditation, Eastern, you know, Taoism, like, all these things are in here, but so is paganism. Like, paganism, like, the mother worship, you know, like, and the Bene Gesserit say that they worship the Great Mother, which they do, but they worship the Great Mother in making themselves badass, like, sufficient people. That's how you worship the Great Mother, is not by, you know, asking her to do everything for you and praying that she helps you. It's you help yourself. You know, that's how you worship the Great Mother, is by helping yourself and, you know, finding true freedom within discipline, you know? And so, so yeah, he has the mother maiden crone, you know, mother goddess aspect totally in these novels, as well as the father aspect and all that shit. Like, he's got that stuff in there too, but it's all represented. And that's why I really like it. I really like it because a lot of people don't realize that there are like religious alternatives to like there's father gods and then there's like mother like gods. So it's like people don't realize that. It's like, what is a mother religion like? You know, it's like, well, it's a lot more chill, but then it's still got its own bullshit. I mean, they all, they all have like fun things and weird things and things that don't make sense and things that are like, I don't know. They all have their own things. They're like little, I don't know. Religions are like little, they're like little personalities, you know. So getting to know them is really interesting, a lot of fun. Moving on to our next question. John Fielding says, oh, not a question, but a thank you. Let me scan this because it's not a question. Are we saying something about was? Yeah, okay, so this dude, John Fielding, is saying thank you and also that Lawrence of Arabia totally reminds him of Dune. And yeah, totally. And when I saw Lawrence of Arabia, I was like, oh fuck, this is what Frank Herbert was inspired by. Frank Herbert watched Lawrence of Arabia. And he also may have read the book. Lawrence of Arabia is based on a book called The Seven Pillars, I think. And yeah, he absolutely, I'm sure he read the book and watched the movie. But that movie, like, I mean, it's you watch it and it's like Lawrence of Arabia's Paul Atreides. Like they're very similar. They're very, very similar. They have their obvious differences, but you can definitely see the inspiration from that T.E. Lawrence has on Paul Atreides. Like T.E. Lawrence was like born in the aristocracy of England, and he was born out of wedlock. Like his dad was somebody, but he wasn't married to his mom, and so his dad couldn't like acknowledge him publicly. It was very like hush hush, but he was still of like good breeding, so that he was still kept at the top, and he went to all the schools with all the other well-bred young men. But everyone knows that he's a bastard, you know, everyone knows he's a bastard. But even so, he has this real feeling of being an outsider. Like he really feels like an outsider growing up, but he still receives the best education, top notch, and he's also a very intelligent young man. I mean, he is of good breeding, so he's a very, very intelligent, like creative dude. And so he's in the British Army, and he's like somewhere in there. He's like making like painting maps and shit. And then like he's in Egypt. They're having this big like war in Saudi Arabia. Like Turkey had taken it over, and like the Saudis were trying to get him. The English was trying to help the Saudis get him out, but the English were doing it for their own reasons because they wanted to take over Saudi Arabia. And T. Lawrence knows all of this, and they need someone to kind of like go back, be the liaison between the Bedouin, which are the desert people. That are super badass and like really like their culture is completely different, and it's like really intense. It's like live or die because they live in the desert, so they're super intense people. But they're also like have these awesome fucking tents that they live in, and they have a fucking way of life that's really beautiful, and they have like it's just like so awesome. So this really cultured guy who respects Islam and respects like all these people, he goes in there and he's so fucking charming that like the Bedouin listen to him. And so now the army has to like deal with this guy because the Bedouin is like, we don't want to talk to, look, we'll talk to you, but only through this guy. Like only if this guy is talking for us, like then we'll fucking deal with your ass. And so England had no choice but to promote him, you know, and like give him all these promotions and shit. And then like, but then because he was a man on the inside, he knew like how it worked, and he knew that they were going to get fucked over. He knew these Saudis were going to get fucked over, and he was doing everything in his power to try to get them to have their own freedom. He truly wanted them to have their own freedom. Like he truly wanted to help them get that. And so he was trying his best. And like, of course it's slippery, but like in the end, I think they got it. But like, he just fell in love with those people, and they accepted him, you know, and they were like, dude, you're badass. Like, and they just got along so well. They were super tight. And then he helped them to help, regain their freedom. So it's like, yeah, you look at Paul Atreides and it's like, There's a lot of T.E. Lawrence in there. There's a lot of T.E. Lawrence. So check out Lawrence of Arabia if you haven't. It's beautiful. It's desert porn. It's really cool. And yeah, man. And what's his face? Peter O'Toole is so great. Like Peter O'Toole and like Omar Sharif. Like Omar Sharif and Peter O'Toole. Like I feel like those guys probably like made out at some point. I don't know. I just feel like they totally did. Because they're just like, I don't know. There's a chemistry between them where you're like, you guys, I know you guys are weird. Peter O'Toole, like a Hollywood dude, you know. His sexuality is a little more fluid, if you know what I mean. So Ryan Weiss asks, why is Paul always crawling through sphincter openings? Lol, JK. Yeah, I know. Every time I read that, I know that someone's chuckling. Like I know that there's someone like you, Ryan, that's like, haha, sphincter. Like I get it. You gotta have that shit because it's like you gotta keep that like, yeah, that seal, you know, and that's what they're there for. That's what they do is they seal things. Kaz Spaz says, oh my God, can you believe we made it to the third act? I know, it's like, it's so crazy. We got two more of these. So for me, these first few chapters seem to emphasize something I haven't previously picked up on. That is the strong and varied roles that women play in Paul's life that support him and guide him and give him strength versus the lack of women in Fade's life and how he's suffering for it. Fade questions the Baron on why he never had a Bene Gesserit in his entourage, which seemed to be highlighting the lack of women in their lives. But then the chapter ends with the Baron demanding the execution of all the pleasure women that Fade has been with. This really seemed to ram it home that women had no place in the disturbed world of Vladimir Harkonnen, and it was a way of further damaging and corrupting Fade. Then we cross to Paul, who is again tripping balls in space-time continuum, and his thoughts keep bouncing between Chani, Hera, Jessica, and Alia. And while it's confusing and a mess, it is their guidance and support that seems to pull him through, especially Chani. Then we get to hang out with Jessica, Hera, and Alia, and they're all being pretty awesome and supportive of Paul and each other, which again feels like a purposeful way of highlighting the way women can connect and support communities, even extremely violent ones like the Fremen. Which made me then realize that the prison planet, Seleucus Secundus, that formed the starter card, deprives them of women until they've survived the oppression, and then they've earned them as objects after they've proven themselves. Is Frank Herbert trying to say something here? Is it a thing? Or am I just coming to the current world climate of gender politics and seeking to find something unique about the role of women in Dune that isn't there? No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Like, we see an example of a society, like the Baron's world and his court and his planet, it is free of feminine influence. There is no feminine influence. There are no Bene Gesserits in his court. There's no soothsayers. The only women that we've heard of so far that work for him are slave girls in the pleasure wing, just because they have to have them for like all sorts of different reasons, for different guests. Like there's all sorts of things. And so, yeah. And so Fade, I mean, we never hear about his mom. We never see him with any other women. He's allowed to go consort with the slave pleasure women, which are the only women he has contact with, you know. And then, yeah, at the end, you are right when he talks about, like, why didn't you ever get a Bene Gesserit? Because you see how Fade was entranced by that Bene Gesserit woman, Lady Margot. I mean, like, and that's also another thing, though. It's like, that's also why Fade is bringing it up, because Lady Margot was probably saying some stuff in his ear and, like, giving him some hypnotic suggestions. She did, okay, this is what Lady Margot did. Lady Margot imprinted Fade. And what Bene Gesserit imprinting is where a Bene Gesserit woman, gives a man who has station or birth or whatever the fuck, he has something that's important to the Bene Gesserit. She gives him such a pleasurable, hot fucking night, like the best night of his life. Like she gives him the best date and after date and like the whole thing. Like she gives him such a great time that he will forever subconsciously be favorable to the Bene Gesserit. Like, he'll be like, just subconsciously be like, those chicks are all right, you know? Because, like, his experience was, like, the fucking best. Like, he got that, like, hardcore, trained Bene Gesserit pussy. And, like, you know, their top pussy is, like, they train these girls. Like, Lady Margot, she had to go to this like a pleasure fucking training planet and go like hang out there and like figure it out. So I mean, they definitely understand the power that they have with their vaginas, and they totally use it on people. And so that's another reason why Faith's bringing it up. It's like he's like, oh, the Bene Gesserit, they're pretty cool. So it's probably a little bit of Lady Margot's influence as well. But of course, like Fade would be desperate for feminine influence because it's unnatural to not have feminine influence. It's unnatural to only be surrounded by men because men and women make up 50% of the population. Like it's like we're even. We're supposed to, in fact, women are like 51 because dudes are a little crazier and they get in accidents more often, so they die like more. But like it's very even, and so yeah, it's unnatural the way that Fate is living, and you can see that and how it's corrupted him and how it's fucked him up. Because you don't need to just have a bunch of dudes doing stuff. You do need to have women around, even if they are scheming Bene Gesserit. You need to balance that. And then you flip over and you see Paul, and dude. Paul has like the best women in his life. Like he has the strongest, best women, and you see how strong that makes him because they all just genuinely do love him and they all do support him. It's like the Baron does not love and support Fade. The Baron just wants to live through Fade. You know, he doesn't want Fade to be his own ruler. Like he just wants him to be a puppet. Jessica knows that she doesn't want that for her son. She doesn't want to be a puppet for her son. I mean, she even thinks about that, where she's like, you know, I am the Reverend Mother. I cannot get involved with this, like, the leadership of the tribes with, like, Paul and Stilgar. Like, I can't try to do anything openly because that's not my place, you know? Like, she respects her son's station. He respects her station. They both have their different roles to play. And they balance each other out, you know, and that's how society should work. It's like you should have an equal balance of power between men and women, and then things seem to just work better because, you know, we do love each other at the end of the day, and so we do want to support one another. Like, I see a lot of people online that are talking about, oh, you know, so many misogynist guys out there, and da, da, da. And I'm not saying there aren't. I mean, sure, yeah, but like, I think I know an overwhelming amount of men in my life who support me and want to see me do well, you know, and like I know, and like all you on the internet too. I mean, 80% of my audience is male, so like you guys really, literally support me. So I think that I think it can totally work. I think we can make it work.
What Jodorowsky wanted.
Yeah, that's what Jodorowsky talks about. You're right. Jodorowsky says that. So the way to fix this, if we really wanted to fix this masculine-feminine balance issue that we have, which is what's warping a lot of the things, like things going on in society, we need to have not one position of power at the top. Like we don't need to have just a president. We need to have a president and a presidenta. You don't need to just have a pope. You need to have a pope and a popess. You need to have two. You don't need to have a principal, like one principal of the school. You need to have a male and a female principal. And they have different roles and different things that they take care of. Like, I think that that's totally, like, they take care of their different things and then they balance each other out. And so I think that's a really provocative idea. I really like that. I think it's really cool. I think that Tyson and I live that, you know, like we have an egalitarian relationship. We've got a show and we both write on it. We both produce it. And sometimes he's doing more of this. Sometimes I'm doing more of that. But we're both like working together towards something, making some shit happen. So, you know, I don't know. And you just see that in Paul's life. You see how many awesome, strong women he has and how they're totally supporting him. Chani is like, oh my God, she's like the best girlfriend ever. Like she's like the best girlfriend ever. Then you have Hera, who's just, like, we just talked about Hera. She's so great. Jessica, and like even Alia. I mean, it's like Alia can understand Paul in a way that most people can't because she, too, is a freak in her own way. And, you know, you think that, oh, Paul's like, my mind got ripped open and I got, you know, raped when I became a Kwisatz, you know, like, oh, you know. And she's just like, bitch, that happened to me when I was in the womb, okay? And it was, like, even more. So, like, don't even, like, Alia's, like, done shit that even Paul hasn't done. So, like, you know, they have that bond. And so they have that uniqueness about them that bonds them. So I think that, yeah, that's fucking awesome. And you're totally on it. And I think that Frank Herbert's trying to say that you need strong women in your life, you know. Dude, his wife, he was like, Lady Jessica is very much based upon his wife, Beverly. And yeah, he like thought that she was like borderline psychic, like from what I've heard. It's like because she was just so fucking smart and like tuned in, you know, and on it. So, and I'm sure they had like a really beautiful relationship where she really, because she is so smart, she can understand him, and then they can like work together. And then they, you know, she actually, Dune was built like Beverly took over as the breadwinner of the family for the 6 years while he devoted his entire mental resources to writing a book that they didn't know was ever going to get published or not. But she just believed in her husband so much and loved him and was like, dude, and this was in like the fucking 50s and 60s, like a woman, like allowing a woman to take care of him and be the breadwinner. And like, you know how much shit he probably got for that, like being in the 60s, like, oh, and how much shit she got for it, where people are like, oh, you're taking care of him, like he should be taking care of you, you know, like, you know, people were saying that fucking shit, but like they were like, nope, you guys can fuck off, we're doing this. It probably hurt their feelings, but they were like, fuck you, you know, we know what we're doing. And then, you know, he made this fucking Dune book, and then it fucking became the best-selling science fiction novel of all time. So it's like, you know, that was fucking awesome. And so Frank Herbert is down with women. Like, Frank Herbert is super down with the ladies. I think he knows what's up. Okay, so this is an interesting question. Bomber BCM asks, wouldn't the Fremen see sex not done for reproductive as a waste of water? I don't know about them, but sex uses up a lot of bodily fluids. And this is something that was addressed in the Dune Encyclopedia. I was reading about the Fremen, and this is not canon. This is from the Dune Encyclopedia. It's fuzzy. You can accept it or not. It's up to you. But what I read was that when a Fremen boy becomes sexually active, he is taught a way to have an orgasm without coming. So there's no waste. So that he has to learn. And before he can be considered a man in the tribe, I think he has to be able to demonstrate or something or prove that he can have an orgasm without wasting his body's water. So that's something that the boys train to do because they would see it as a waste, you know. Although I wonder about blowjobs because it's like, well, you're giving it away. So like, I mean, I bet Fremen women are all about blowjobs. Like, to be really honest with you, I mean, that would make a lot of sense. I'm a perv. I think about these things. And yeah, so, but also they don't like, I mean, they have their crazy orgy nights and stuff like that. And like, you know, they have their wild nights, but yeah, I don't think they're like, it is kind of a waste of water. It's like they're like boning if they're like trying to have kids, and they are trying to have kids. So like they're not like, they're like totally about it. But yeah, they have, you know, that's how it works. That's the whole deal. So. Amit Q. Rosenberg says, new patron person here. Hello, new Team 19 member. As promised on Twitter, here is my rambling question. I was wondering how you thought the hypothetical ideal society Frank might have constructed in Book 7 may have differed from the Bene Gesserit society outlined in Book 6. Highly educated, self-aware citizens wholly dedicated to the advancement and survival of humanity sounds pretty good to me. They were like the Fremen, stringent environmentalists acting more or less in unison, but free from religious manipulation. Seems like the deal to me. And that's a really interesting question. I don't know. I wish I knew exactly what he was going to do in Book 7. That's why I'm like super bummed that he never got to finish it. But in Book 7, he was going to go on to outline what he felt would be the ideal government situation, because we have to organize ourselves and we have to like share information among ourselves and we have to work together, and like, but that invariably, you know, creates these power structures, and these power structures attract the corruptible, and then these power structures become corrupted, and then we have all these problems. And so how do we create a government that doesn't become corruptible? Like, how do we create something that, but not even a government, a system that works that doesn't create power imbalances and corruption. And I don't know. I mean, I wish I knew exactly what it was. I feel more like it is kind of like it is like the Bene Gesserit like mission where they want people to just be really educated and self-sufficient, and if everybody is like educated and to some degree and self-sufficient to some degree as much as they can be and only as much as you can be. They're not asking you to be a Kwisatz Haderach if you're just normal dude, you know, but they do want you to be the best normal dude that you can be. And like, I think that, you know, there's ways of educating people that heighten everybody, you know, and there's ways of educating people that lower everyone's frequency. You know, there's like different types of these things. So like, that's what they were all about. And they were also about mediation. Like, they don't believe in laws. Like, laws, they like guidelines, you know? Like, it's like they're like pirates. It's like the Bene Gesserit are about having guidelines. And so they're like, hey, here's some truths that we've noticed. You know, here's some things that we think are a thing. They may not apply in every single case. You're welcome to debate them. But this is the knowledge that we've gotten. You know, so you can throw it out if you need to, but, you know, I think that it might be important for you. And so that's kind of how they approach things. And so instead of having laws where it's like, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that, you create a society of people who are actually like balanced individuals who've been supported instead of like turned into like, you know, cows or slaves or whatever. And then they'll be able to govern themselves. And then if they do have any problems, then they can go to an arbitration center where you can have a neutral arbitrator who looks at the problem, who goes, okay, your side tell me this. Okay, your side tell me that. Okay, let's talk about it. And then they figure it out instead of having like, if you break this rule, then this happens. It's like, you have people who just don't go around doing asshole shit. And when there is a problem, they just mediate it. And I think maybe that's it. I don't know. Maybe that's the big thing. But hey, Tyson. I have to take a bathroom break again. You guys have been so patient with me. Like, Dune Club has been, like, awesome, but it's been, like, a lot of work, and we've been doing all this other stuff that I haven't even been telling you guys about. It'll be unveiled soon. Well, you kind of already know. I've been working on the Watchmen Club stuff, but, like, yeah, I don't know. It's been crazy. Anyways, I don't know where he is. This is a mess today. We're just, like, really fast and loose. This is very casual. This is very casual fucking Sunday. So I'm going to go to the bathroom. I'm going to be right back. You do the same. Thanks for your patience. Hey guys, thank you. She's on the phone. We're a mess today. I'm drinking all this Tecate. It's just running right through me. Whatever. You guys, I mean, yeah, you guys are getting a real live one today. Okay, so moving on. Carlos Santamaria asks, are we living in the golden path? I cannot believe with the amount of wealth and resources the lead have chosen a correct course of action for our future. Like Paul, do they stall knowing our future, or have they made their decision amidst the sacrifice? Thanks for reading, and much love to your team. Mostly robot. Okay. I mean, we're always, I think each of us individually and humanity as a greater whole, I think that we are all on the golden path, even though we may or may not realize it. The golden path being the path towards maturity. I mean, that's, I think, what that really means is like path towards maturity, path towards true freedom, you know, like true spiritual freedom, which is freedom from your shadow self, like understanding your shadow self. It's like becoming a more integrated person, a more enlightened being, you know, as much as you can be, like be the best person that you can be with the skills that you've been given. But it's up to you to like know yourself, you know, and you have to know yourself. And so that's what I take the golden path to mean, is like that path towards maturity and enlightenment. And we're all on that path, whether we realize it or not. Although, you know, if you become more aware of it, you can go on the path, like the path maybe might go a little faster for you. I mean, it's kind of like a video game. Like if you don't know you're in this, but it's like a big open world video game. You know, I really do like subscribe to that idea that like life is this big like Sims video game. Like this is all a weird simulation. I mean, it's like a simulation that feels very real, obviously, but like there is this observer in us that comes from somewhere else. You know, like there is this consciousness, that this little spark that's in all of us. And so it's like, but that's like, you know, the Wi-Fi, like, you know, it's like you're like this little person, and then there's like somebody like playing this video game or something. Like you're connected to some greater source that's playing this video game, but we're like these little characters. And so, yeah, so I like to think of it like that. And so if you realize you're in a video game and start like looking for the right, like first you have to get good items. You're like looking for the right items to like boost your shit, the right tools and stuff. Like you gotta get, I mean, it's like The Sims, you know, like you gotta build everything. You gotta like find the right people. You gotta find like, there's bosses, you know, that you have to defeat to go to next levels and stuff like that. Kind of like, what is it? Scott Pilgrim's, that Scott Pilgrim movie where he has to defeat like the Nega Scott in the end. Like that's totally the final boss. Like you do have to beat the Nega Scott. So, yeah. But the thing is like, you know, you talk about Carlos, you talk about the elites having all the wealth and the resources. And I mean, I believe that it's kind of always been that way. Whenever there is a power structure, whenever there is a government like on these sizes, they always do this. Whether there's corporations at these large sizes, it's like they have all this power. This is always what happens. Like, I mean, whether it's a monarchy, whether it's a bank, whether it's a corporation, whether it's, you know, whatever, it's kind of the church, you know, whether it's the Catholic Church, whether it's whoever, it's just what's going to happen. It's like, that's why, you know, the Fremen kind of like tribal living is a better way to live, you know, it's like, because there's not that shit going on. Man, power structures, they're a problem. Like they help us in so many ways, but then they also hurt us in so many ways. It's like this really weird thing. It's like really hard to balance. Simon Arsenault asks, since the time Frank Herbert wrote Dune, artificial intelligence has grown by leaps and bounds, both in the way scientists are developing it and the way writers are imagining it. I saw a science fiction show called Dark Matter in which a dying person's consciousness is transferred into a computer and later into an android body, making her a sort of robot Mentat hybrid. Given all these changes, if Herbert were to write Dune today, do you think it would be very different compared to the version that we have now? No, I think that, I mean, of course it'd be a little different. There's always going to be some differences because there's different influences. But, I mean, it definitely wouldn't be the same Dune. But I feel like Frank Herbert was writing this because he's, like, not about, like, being augmented. Like, he wanted to write, like, what humans could, what he thought that humanity could do on its own, free from being augmented and helped along by technology. And of course, you're still going to have to use something to augment yourself, and they use drugs. Like he's like, instead of technology, how about we start using drugs? Like that's his answer. Because I mean, you do, yeah. I mean, when that's all you rely upon, when you're a performer, you know, and like your performance, like people who perform generally do like try some sorts of different types of drugs that help them perform better, that enhance performance enhancing drugs, whether they're athletes or dancers or actors or singers or whatever the fuck. Like if you like get in the zone, I mean, even if you're just like a fucking, like mathematician, if you like get in that zone, it's like people who use their brains or like people who perform with something where they really have to fucking focus. It's like, yeah, everybody abuses drugs. I mean, and I like that he kind of just was like, that makes more sense to me. Like, let's try that approach instead of technology, because technology is kind of like, what can we do? Like we're amazing beings. So I think that he'd keep it more drug instead. He'd be definitely talking about drugs instead of talking about augmentation, like cybernetic augmentation. Bobby McIntyre asks, I noticed the Baron dissing the Fremen's new religious leader, Muad'Dib, and telling the Raban to let them have their religion since Muad'Dib means mouse. And how funny that is. Again, the fat gross Baron is blind to his real enemy and downfall, and he still doesn't really figure it out when Hawat tells him that there could be up to 5 million Fremen on Arrakis. He thinks about making it a prison planet, still unable to figure out he's lost already. And yeah, that's another awesome thing about Paul calling himself the Muad'Dib, or not Paul calling, but like Paul allowing himself to take that name. Is he knows, he has to know, like to some degree, like that it all just works so perfectly, and it does work perfectly on the Baron because he's like the mouse. Whatever, yeah, that sounds like a fucking stupid religion. Yeah, sure, they can worship the mouse, like whatever. But it's totally his undoing. Like, it is so perfect. It's really perfect. It is really perfect. And yeah, I mean, pride comes before the fall, and so the Baron has a lot of pride, and he's getting ready to take a tumble. Our next question comes from Lincoln Jones. Question about the Bene Gesserit and have they replaced organized religion? There is the Orange Catholic Bible, but there doesn't appear to be any other religious iconography, if that is the right word. The only mention of any religion is in the distant past, and when they created the Orange Catholic Bible, there's no mention of priests, houses of worship, or have I missed mentions of it? The Fremen follow the beliefs planted into them from the missionary Protectiva. Do you think Herbert was saying something about how organized religion and how the ruling classes use it as a means of control, and how that can come back to bite them, as we see today? I'm loving Dune Club. Thanks for all the time and effort this must take. Thank you, Lincoln.
It does.
It does, yeah. We're a little bit of a mess. It's fine. So yeah, I mean, he's totally okay. So the Orange Catholic Bible we've gotten so advanced. Humanity's gotten advanced enough to where they understand that all these religions, like, not one is right. It's just something that it's an ideology that you subscribe to, and that there is a need to stop fighting these. There's a need to stop fighting amongst them. And so they try to synthesize. They recognize that every religion has a piece of the truth. They're mature enough to realize that at this point. They distill over many years, and you could read about this in the appendix. I think it's appendix 2 in the back of the book, Religions of Arrakis. They have the CET, something economical, something. Okay. Anyways, they have these people all come together who are, the heads of all these different religions. Every major religion comes and participates. And they all put in their ideas, and they all talk about their ideas with one another, and they have all these delegates, and they all agree upon what to put in there, and they all combine all of their major religious texts. So you're going to have the Bible mixed with the Quran, mixed with the what is it, like the I can't remember the Hindu one, but I'm not as good with the Indian words. Okay, there's one of that one that's going to be in there. You're going to have like some Taoist shit in there. You're going to have like all the different stuff. You're going to have everything, all these sacred books put together. The Torah put in there. Like, just put all that shit in there. And but you got to make it make sense. So they go through and they refine it. And so that's like the big thing, But this happened this happened thousands of years ago by the time Paul gets his hands on it. So, you had that happen, and then now in the ultra future, since that's happened, it's like kind of like people have their religions in on the planets, people have their religions, but within the elite, religion isn't really a thing. Like, the elites don't believe in any of the religions. They see it as a tool of manipulation. They see it as, you know, superstitious stuff that people just subscribe to, that the peasant class, it's for the peasant class. Religion is for the peasant class. And I mean, obviously, that's how the Baron sees it. You know, I mean, he's like, oh, that's, yeah, sure, let them have their religion. I don't care. Like, it keeps them busy. You know, like, it keeps them busy. Let them have it. Oh, they're following some guy named the Mouse. Whatever. Who cares? So, so that's what I think. What he's trying to just illustrate to you is like how people at the top kind of view religion, but then how it can come back to bite them in the ass, and how there is a power to it. And if you, the thing is, like, I believe in the power of belief. And so if you have enough people believing the same idea at the same time, they're going to manifest that, eventually speaking. Like, if you have a small group, or small, big, whatever group, if you have a group of determined people who are all turning their psychic frequencies to a certain thing, and they're praying for one thing, and like they're also working towards that goal. You have to meet God halfway. You can't just like pray for it and not do anything. You have to do stuff too. But if that's done, then like you'll get whatever you want. And so while the upper class see religion as a way to manipulate people, they don't necessarily respect the fact that if you have somebody who's created a specific religion, that, like, this is a very militant religion. This is a militant religion. And so they are, you know, praying every night the same prayer, and like these things, and like they have called the voice from the outer world, because they really do believe it. And so by really, really believing it, like, it fucking eventually manifests itself. So you gotta be careful, like, what you wish for. Because ironically, when they finally get what they want and they get that person to help lead them, then like they lose their culture in a way. Like, the Fremen are no longer the Fremen, like, afterwards. Like, they are, you see them, like, in the next couple books, like, after this, like, how Arrakis has changed. But, like, in the further future, in God Emperor territory, the Fremen are no longer, because their planet's awesome now. Like, so they're not badass anymore. They're, like, kind of a shell of what they were. They're just normal. Keith Rutenberg says, the abusive and competitive relationship between the Baron and Fade makes me think of the reptilian brain in the triune brain model and its related behavior, aggression, dominance, etc. It is very base and repulsive, and yet effective in controlling others and getting what you want. Ruthless manipulation for power. And yeah, the reptilian brain, that is a thing. It's totally a thing. I have a reptile for the first time in my life, Duke Leto, over there in his cage. And it's been interesting having this reptilian brain. And I have a reptilian brain in my house. And like, I see him every day, and I'm like, hey dude, you know, we interact to some degree. And yeah, but he's really cool though. It's like, reptilian brain is very aggressive, and it is like dominance, you know, and he totally tries to dominate me. Duke Leto is like this fucking big, and he's like, you know, like looking at me, like, I'm like, whoa, dude, like, it works. It really does work. So I know. We do have our own little reptilian brains. Like, we do have a little bit of that. And so it does work. You know, that's why I say read the 48 Laws of Power. You know, you may not like what it says, but it kind of rings true for a lot of people, and that's kind of how humans operate.
Seemingly the majority of people are running off the reptilian brain.
A lot of people are running off not their human brain. A lot of people are running off some really low frequency shit. But not to say that they can't raise their frequencies. You know, I believe that you can always raise your frequency a little bit. You know, it's just like a little bit by little bit by little bit. So yeah, Fade totally though has that reptilian brain. I mean, you see him like trying to kill the Baron, and he's just, and it's like, what does the Baron expect? Like, the Baron is like, oh, you know, his spy system sucks, but he wants his spy system to suck because he wants to be able to rule over him. He doesn't want to build a creature who's able to overtake him, you know, so he builds in these fail-safes for himself that make Fade stupid and not be able to outwit him, you know, like. So, and it's sad though, like, you shouldn't do that to your heir. Like, you want to make your heir better than you were. Like, you want them to be better than you were, but the Baron doesn't. But that's the thing, is like, you lose control over that at some point. Like, you have when raising your heir, you have like some amount of control over that, but eventually they do become their own person. Like Paul's become his own person. They overtake you, and then you have to find a new place. And so, but the Baron is so greedy for power that he doesn't ever want to let that go. Whitney Bacon asks, got two for you here. Are you guys going to do another calendar? Maybe. It won't be a cosplay calendar. I don't think so, though. It probably won't work out. And then she's been working on that already. And two, I wish. I just like, there's so many merch ideas I want to do, and I can't do all of them. And
yeah, go ahead and tell them the idea we had.
well, yeah. Right now, I mean, okay. So let me
test the popularity of the idea.
Yeah. Well, watch the feed. I can't see the chat. Let me know what they say. Vicky isn't here.
Where's Vicky?
I know she's not here, so she's not monitoring the chat, telling me what's up. Next time we'll do whatever. Okay, so let me just lay some of my plans on you guys. Because I got like plans within plans, okay? Like I'm running so many fucking plans right now, it's like insane. So here's the deal. I got Watchmen Club coming up. I already told you guys about that. Our next book club is going to be on Watchmen. And so in order to do that, again, I'm going to do a Watchmen Club box pre-sale. So I have been working with an illustrator, Matthew Skiff, who has been illustrating the fucking most amazing shit ever. He did this CBG Dr. Manhattan comic book girl, and it looks so fucking sick. Like, this illustration is so good. I'm gonna put it on a fucking bookmark. I already got the bookmark. Like, we've been talking about what lapel pen we want. We've been talking about, like, I already talked to Book Pals. I got the books, like, what we're gonna use for the fucking books and where to get that and how much that's gonna cost. And, like, me and Vicky, before she left, like, we went over everything. We're like, okay, we're going to have this button and this pen and this sticker and this thing and this thing and this thing. So yeah, so it's like, I've got this whole Watchmen box pre-sale that I'm coming up with in my brain, which is a lot of decisions. It's like a lot of decisions. I'm going to try to launch it on October 1st. It may or may not happen. It's a tentative date, but I'm trying to hit October 1st for the beginning of the pre-sale for the Watchmen box. It'll go for approximately 30 days or so. Again, tentatively, these things are subject to change depending on how the weather is. And then after that, we have to order all this stuff in, and then we have to box it all up, have it kitted and shipped from our distribution company in Pacoima. And we have to make sure that everybody gets it in time, which we will be shipping out in December and January so that everybody will be getting it and ready to read it in February. Okay, so I'm having to orchestrate this entire thing. Like, this entire thing is a lot. On top of that, after the pre-sale is over for the box, I am launching, hopefully, again, tentatively, a comic book rolling teen merch site, because I do want to make a lot of merch. I want to make some more cool stuff. And so I got this guy Bowski, who I'm working with, and he's going to make us a new store, and, like, we're going to have some new fucking shirts. In fact, we're going to have this shirt available.
Some people were asking about that shirt.
Yeah, we're going to have this shirt available, except I'm going to change it from, like, green, like, because my hair used to be pink, now it's green. So I want to make my hair green and the background pink, so we'll just flip-flop those. Because this is from the Kickstarter, and Matthew Skiff actually designed this. So I really like his work. I love his designs. They're just, like, so good. So, and God, this Watchmen box is going to look so fucking cool. He drew Beans as Silk Spectre. He's drawn Robot as Comedian. Bobo, who's the mystery character on the show, he is Rorschach. And then I am Dr. Manhattan. And then Brain is Owl. Space Brain is Owl. And Tyson is Ozymandias. So we have a whole crew. We're going to have a patch. It's going to be so sick. It's going to be like really cool. We're going to have like a little notebook. Like, it's going to be crazy. So yeah, so I've been like coming up with all that stuff, and then also working with this other guy to get this merch stuff going. And then like, if I can finally get all this stuff going, then yeah. And then on top of that, I'm doing all this Dune Club stuff. On top of that, we're working on our season 7 review for Game of Thrones. On top of that, I just saw Mother, and I really want to talk about that movie. Oh my God, I want to talk about that movie. So nuts. Go see it. Go see Mother. Go see Mother. Go see Mother.
People want Lizard Vito in watch cosplay.
Oh shit. We'll stick him in there. He could be the Black Freighter guy, maybe. We could have him as the Black Freighter guy. Yeah, he's just a little. Yeah. Yeah, I know we should do just what we do Leto. Anyways, okay, so moving on. So that's some of the shit that I'm dealing with. On top, like that's my like business stuff that I'm dealing with, and then on top of that, I've got like personal business, personal stuff that's stupid. I've got like I got all sorts of stuff going on. So, all right. So waiting bacon, or oh no, wait. Second question. I had a hard time with the timeline in this section. At one point, Stilgar says that Paul has been on Arrakis for 6+ years, and at another point after this, Jessica mentions that they have been there for 2 years. Is this Paul's stuff visions? Okay, no. He didn't say he's been on the planet for 6 years. Stilgar said that Paul is 6 years older than when they normally have this rite of passage. So he's like 18 now, because normally they're like 12. So 6 plus 12 equals 18. So that tells us that he's 18 years old now. Because when he was, like right before he goes to Arrakis, he's 15. And then sometime during the coup, it's like his birthday. And like he turns 16. So, yeah. So that's what that was. All right. Jake asks, it's interesting how Herbert has written Stilgar. He tells Paul not only not to be flashy when he tries riding the worm, but also tells him he disadvantages like 12-year-olds riding worms and Paul being an outworlder. He tells him in an upfront, respectful manner as well to help take the pressure off of him. Stilgar is a man that thinks and understands people as human, even going back to the first interactions with him and him telling Jessica the faults in a marriage between the two. You can tell that he thinks a lot about how others will react or respond and how Stilgar's thought process works in a way that I don't think a lot of people in our own culture comprehend. Most people have a hard time putting themselves in another's shoes and understanding why they choose certain ways to get where they are. I am an empath, and I see the way people may think and feel is not the same as the way people may think and feel is not the same as another's. So some people need to verbalize it, and that's okay not to look cool while trying to mound a gross giant drug pooper and just to focus on the task of when others find it obvious. I also wanted to talk about when he says to Paul, show us the way, as he knows Paul is Muad'Dib, but not as the Kwisatz Haderach. Yet both reflect an educator that will lighten or shorten the way for all. I think he deliberately said this to inspire Paul because Stilgar is a calculating man and also thinks about which words to use when helping others. Well, yeah, like as I said earlier, Stilgar is totally a awesome specimen of a man. Okay, like Stilgar is like the ultimate man. I think that Frank Herbert wrote him as the ultimate man who's like super, like he's self-sufficient, he's like handy, he's like fucking badass, but he also does have empathy, and that's what makes him even stronger is the fact that he understands his people, and he understands like how their minds work, and he understands how his actions affect them, and he really takes that into account when he thinks about the consequences of his actions. He's a man who really considers the consequences of his actions emotionally and physically, and that's awesome. And that's why Stilgar is like, he is saying like, yeah, you're an outworlder or whatever. Because like outworld, I don't think they've ever seen an outworlder ride a worm before like this. No one's ever done this. Like this is like, 12-year-old Fremen kids do, but they're Fremen kids. Like he's not Fremen. And so, yeah, he is being respectful about it. But at the same time, he is like, don't be flashy, just do it. Like, do it like they taught you, like he's a good dad. Like, Stilgar's a really good dad. So, not only is he a good man, he's a good dad. And he's a good leader, and Stilgar's the best. I think we could all do better by learning from Stilgar's example. So, PJB asks, so the beginning of chapter header states, deep in the human unconsciousness is a pervasive need for a logical universe that makes sense, but the real universe is always one step beyond logic. It's something that I really like. If you study pure math, you quickly get into weird paradoxical situations. For example, the Cantor set. Logic itself, when you go deep, becomes unintuitive and complex. As mathematics are sometimes called the language of the universe, many scientists don't realize how truly weird things get. Would you care to expand on that quote relative to the Dune book and to real life? Yeah, I was talking about this a little bit earlier, but I'll go back to it. yeah, like that is one thing. Like I'm not deep in that math business, you know. I didn't do I mean, I can do math. I always made A's in it, but like it's not something that I don't care about, so I just dump it. I'm just like whatever. But I do respect it, and it is the language of the universe, and I see that, and I think it's really interesting. And I do believe you that when you get like the higher you get into math, the weirder it does get. Like it gets super fucking weird. Again, I don't understand it exactly. I mean, I know exactly what the Cantor's head is, but I completely believe you that it gets fucking weird, and there's a lot of paradoxes and things don't make sense because the higher you get, like the weird, you know, it is like you get further out there and like things get really weird, and that happens in everything. I think that happens, you know, in math, it happens in science, it happens in philosophy, it happens in art. You know, it's like it happens in our bodies. Like when we get, you know, when you get down to like you look at like the very basic components of like our DNA, like in our little things flashing on and off. It's very random looking. It's not something that like has this beautiful, you know, music set to it. And so, yeah, we live in a universe of chaos, like at its very core, you know. And that's the thing is that it's saying it's like embrace the chaos, baby, because like even though your brain is always trying to make logical sense of this universe, and to some degree you can get by on that, like the universe is always one step ahead of you, and like it's always going to surprise you. The universe is always going to surprise you. It's always going to surprise you with some bullshit, constantly, you know. Like it's gonna catch you off guard. There is no way to understand everything in the universe, and that's okay. I think that's really cool. I think it's a lot of fun. I like finding those places where you don't understand and just being like, okay, well, that's crazy to think about. You don't have to solve everything. You can just have it and keep it in you and just be like, wow, that's a weird thing. You know, just kind of practice the art of acceptance, you know, because that is an art form. Acceptance is an art form. Learn it, do it, try it. It'll help you in your life. I've been thinking a lot about the hanged man of the tarot lately. That came up in one of my tarot readings for myself. And the hanged man is hanging upside down. You know, he's got his hands tied behind his back. Or behind his back. You don't know if they're tied or not, but they're behind his back. And the hanged man represents a time where you shouldn't do anything. You shouldn't make any decisions. You shouldn't make any actions. All you can do is wait. All you can do is watch and wait and just accept what's going on. And there's nothing you can do. So you just have to sit there. And I think that there's a lot of wisdom in that. You know, you can't do that forever. You eventually do have to make a decision. There's always like the cycles, like you will always have an action to make eventually, but it's okay when you, but that you don't always need to make a decision all the time. And so, yeah, that's in the universe. Like sometimes if you wait for the universe, it'll kind of show you, I don't know what to do if you just stop trying so hard. And just kind of flow with it, you know. And that's how you deal with like the real universe being like super crazy. It's just you just kind of float in it. Although, you know, Paul talks about how he feels like he's floating in, but it's like on this raging river, and like he's like, oh, it's crazy. Pierre Jerome also goes on to ask, in a relatively quick one, the Baron orders Phaedra to kill all of his slave girls, and then there will be more to replace them, showing how violent and uncaring the Dune universe is for those not in high places. Sometimes it feels like Herbert is an elitist of the bad kind, but that may be because the book was written in the early 60s. Would Herbert give moisture for the dead, unwashed masses? Feel like Herbert is an elitist of the bad kind. Of the bad kind. It's very telling that you use the word bad. Because bad represents something that's like, oh, that's, you know, that's not right. There's this one way to do things, and then there's this other way, and that's not right. It's not moral. It's not ethical. And again, it's like it's arbitration. There's no laws. Like good and bad mean that there's like a law. You're having a law system in your head. You have a law that's like, oh, if you talk about this like this, then you know what? Like you're not a good person or something. It's like no. It depends on the context. And I think that again, it's like you can read something like 48 Laws of Power and think that the guy who wrote that, Robert Greene, is like he shouldn't be saying this. He shouldn't be putting this information out there for people to get. And like that's, you know, like dangerous for him to do, and he could be considered a bad person for doing that. But at the same time, it's like, well, he's just showing you how it works. Like he's just being honest, and I think that that's what Frank Herbert is he's just being honest, and he's not sugarcoating it, and he's also not injecting his own morals and ethics on the situation. And I think that that shows the mark of true brilliance, where he's able to not project his own judgments onto this. And he has enough wherewithal to be able to write a book where it shows you what happens, so you see it for yourself and you can make the decision whether this is right or not. He's not trying to tell you how to make your decision. He's not trying to persuade you, because he could very easily persuade you, because he knows that, like, we are generally good people who are like, yeah, slavery sucks, and like these things suck, of course, like racism or whatever, it's like, oh, these are all, but it's like, he's like, no, I'm not going to try to manipulate them and play upon those things. I'm just going to show them how it works, and then they can make a decision, and they're probably going to be like, wow, this is fucked up. And, it is fucked up. Like, it is fucked up, but he's also just being a realist, And so, in a way, it's like, yeah, I don't know, he's just being real. Just being real about it. So, I think that Herbert would give moisture for the dead, unwashed masses. I think that that's why he wrote the most popular fucking science fiction novel of all time, maybe. Is because he was trying to teach people how this stuff worked, because he didn't want to see people like falling prey to these sort of shenanigans. That he was tired of seeing like the unwashed masses, because he's a part of the unwashed masses. Like, he is not, and like, yes, he is smarter than most people and he's an elitist in that respect to some degree, but he also is of the common man. He wasn't born to some really rich ass family. He didn't, like, he left as soon as he could out of his like family home. Like, he didn't have any money. He went and he like got a job working, like he lied about his age so he could get a job. I think he went in the military too. Like, I think he was in the military as well. And like, I mean, this guy traveled around a lot, and yeah, like but the thing is, he's a mentat, like he's like a fucking really smart dude. So it's like, it's very lonely for that guy, but I think that he's definitely one of us. He's one of the peasant class. He called himself a techno peasant. Like, he doesn't consider himself to be in power. He never wanted power. He never went after power. He could have easily started a cult if he wanted to, but he didn't. And like, every time people asked him if he was starting a cult, he'd be like, no, I'm trying to teach people how to not get wrapped up in cults. Like, this is why I'm not trying to create a cult. I want people to not get sucked in by shit like this. But he did such a good job that
it's the difference in educating the masses versus taking advantage of the masses.
Yeah, he's trying to educate the masses instead of take advantage of them. So, yeah, I think that he would give moisture to the unwashed masses. I don't think that he is an asshole, even though he writes about people who are assholes, and he definitely can feel that, but like, that doesn't mean he himself is an asshole. So Candy for Crow's Simmer asks, I don't know about others, but it took me a couple of hours to get through the first section of Paul's chapter when he's still in his dream state, from questioning his time-space existence, unsure of his true past memories and his trinocular vision, so imbued with his psyche that he's not even sure if he's still in our dimension anymore. Fuck, man, my brain couldn't take it. I hear you. I mean, he did find his dad's skull, or has that not happened yet? I also had to look up race consciousness, which then led me down a rabbit hole to look up more about Alam al-Mithral, which led me to an interesting Wikipedia article called Active Imagination, if anyone is interested. Active Imagination on Wikipedia, guys. Candy for Crow's Simmer says there's some interesting shit in there. I believe you. Anyways, I just wanted to express how much I'm enjoying the book. Also, will there ever be the return of the Plopcast? Lastly, I know the novel is almost finished, but would you ever read a section of the book to us, using different voices, of course? If not this, then maybe for Watchmen. The return of the Plopcast, as of right now, we don't have any plans for that. Because we already have like a million other shows that we're doing and like got some other stuff. But who knows? I mean, we live in a fucking universe of possibilities. Every time I say something isn't going to happen, then it fucking turns around and we end up fucking doing it somehow. So, who knows? But right now, there's no plans.
It's been a while since we podcasted.
It has been a while since we podcasted. Would I ever consider reading a section of the book to you, using different voices, of course? I mean, I would consider it. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Maybe there's some other people who'd be interested in that. I don't know. I do like doing voice acting stuff. So, again, we live in a universe of possibilities. Anything can happen. Nico Ketsilis asks, what happened to Jessica's crysknife that we haven't seen since the dinner party? And I guess the Harkonnens got it that night when they got the Duke. Yeah, Jessica's crysknife, yeah, they took her shit. So she doesn't have it anymore. Michael Ottinger asks, Oh, just says no real questions. Hope they're going well. You've been out of the loop the last few weeks. It's okay. It's been crazy for all of us. It's been crazy for me too. So, um, Heath Calloway says, I feel like Jessica is beginning the process of pulling away from Paul at this point, partly to fulfill her duties as Dune's version of Reverend Mother, partially to allow Paul to take the reins as leader of the new age. But I can't help feel her withdrawal is motivated by something else too. Her choices have molded the fate of the universe as much as any other person in the series. Arguably the most influential Bene Gesserit of all time. Yeah, you could tell, like she was a bad girl. Like she was a bad Bene Gesserit, and like she defined the fucking universe. Like, oh, so sick. But her choices have created a present and future where her son may never know true happiness due to the weight on his shoulders. Now she inadvertently awakened her daughter to cosmic awareness in the womb, damning her to never know the bliss of ignorant childhood. Do you feel that Jessica regrets not just carrying the female child the Bene Gesserit intended for her and playing the role she was designed for, and those regrets are driving her away from Paul's side? Does she still see her beloved little boy when she looks at the person Paul has become, or has she lost that part of herself that could still perceive him as a boy? The expression of her love for Leto. I think that she absolutely does feel guilt about what has happened to Paul and what has happened to Alia. I do feel like she does feel a measure of guilt for that. At the same time, she just, like, she did what she did, and she's not going to necessarily spend her time regretting it. You know, she's like, it happened. I can't like spend my time in the past regretting it. I made my choices and I'm going to live with them, and my children are going to pay for them. But she definitely is the most like influential Bene Gesserit of all time. I mean, she did influence the universe in a way that no Bene Gesserit single woman had ever done. But do I think that she regrets not carrying the female that she was supposed to carry? I mean, I think there are probably times when she does feel that way. I'm sure there are times when she does feel that way, but again, it's like she's committed to her course, you know, and that's part of the Bene Gesserit training, is to be like, accept, like a big part of being a woman, even. I mean, a big part of being a human, I think, too, though, is practicing acceptance, you know, because there's a lot of things that like don't go right, or people get hurt, or things, you know, like there's just shit that goes wrong sometimes, and you do have to accept it. And you also have to accept it when you're also hurt, you know, because it's like, it's just life, you know, it's like this fucking thing. And so you have to learn to just keep moving and keep going forward. Although, I mean, yeah, it's not to say that she doesn't ever feel bad about it. So, yeah. Yeah. And then I think that, I mean, she does respect Paul growing as a man, and like she's like, she does still see that boy. And I mean, as a mother, I think that you'll always see that child, like you'll always see that. But that she's not here to get in his way, you know. And I mean, she's not gonna be overbearing, and like, I mean, she kind of is a little bit, because she's like sending out her spy. I mean, again, have your mom has a whole spy network. I mean, can you imagine your mom has an entire spy network? You think she's not gonna spy on you? Like, of course your mom is gonna spy on you. So I mean, she's gonna spy on Paul and like be a mom. But she also isn't going to openly interfere with anything that he does, and she respects his power and doesn't do anything to diminish that. So yeah, and that's what a real loving mother should do. Is like, it's like you want your progeny to be stronger than you are, and that means you have to let them take the reins at some point. Eogan asks, hi CBG, loving the book club and really admire you putting in the effort to create something truly unique on the internet. Thank you. Anyways, having gotten this far into the book, I find myself far more engaged now in the Harkonnen plotline. I love political intrigue and was wondering if this aspect of the novel is continued throughout the series, and if you have any other recommended reading for stuff like this besides Game of Thrones. I also would like to know how much you think Herbert incorporated his own personal history with politics into any of his work, considering he was cousins with the Joseph McCarthy. Also, random side note, I would love Trent Reznor on the soundtrack for the upcoming adaptation with Villeneuve. Could listen to you talk about anything. Big admirer here from Kerry West of Ireland. Oh my god, you're so right. Trent Reznor working on the Dune soundtrack with Villeneuve would be pretty awesome. That'd be really awesome. That would make my life. Like, I would be so excited. I would have it on vinyl. Yeah, it'd be really good. You got me really excited. So anything besides, okay, so obviously I definitely recommend reading the rest of the Frank Herbert books, but I would also recommend reading the books that inspired Game of Thrones. It's called like the Iron King series or something like that, I believe. It's like this French guy wrote it. There's a lot of French names. You're not gonna be able to pronounce them. I read one of the books. It might be better if you listen to the book because in listening to them, they pronounce the names right. But yeah, like the Iron King and the Strangled Queen, like there's this whole thing, and it's supposed to be based on real life. It's like real shit that happened within the French monarchy. And it's like, it starts off with France is broke, so they have decided to steal from the Knights Templar who had a lot of money. They accuse them of being like satanic heretics against the Christian church, use that whole line. Steal all the gold that they have, and then they burn the main guy of the Knights Templar, like the leader. I don't know what his official title is, but like the main fucking dude. And they burn him as a heretic. They burn him as like a fucking witch, and he's not. And he knows exactly why they're doing what they're doing, and there's nothing he can do about it. And this really happened. So they all the nobles gather around and they get ready to light this guy on fire. And he curses. He's like puts a curse upon the Pope because the Pope colluded in this. He puts a curse upon the king. And he puts a curse upon one other guy. I can't remember, but he was like implicit in all this. Some other big high ranking guy. And he says, like, I curse you motherfuckers, and you're all going to die within the year. Peace. And then he burns to death. And within that year, those 3 men die. And it's like crazy. But it's like through all these different happenstances, and like this book goes through all of them. And then there's like this whole thing, secession, and like, when he was burned, he also said something about like, oh, all of your kids, like, and then like saying all of your kids. I don't know. He was like cursing everybody. And then it just shows like afterwards this crazy shit that went on within this fucking royal family that got cursed by this Knight Templar guy who was wrongly being burned for being a witch. So I would definitely check that series out. I think it's like the Iron King is the first one, I believe. Casey Puffy Dugan asks, our introduction to Alia really moved me, especially her description of her awakening consciousness and losing her own identity, trying to find her sense of self again. Her tearing up and calling herself a freak broke my heart. Do you think Jessica could have handled the situation better after she was born? As soon as she displayed these superhuman qualities, couldn't she have used the Missionaria Protectiva to paint Alia in a miraculous light? There are religious legends in our own era of messiahs being born, walking and talking. Could none of that have survived? I know there's a taboo about becoming a Reverend Mother while pregnant for precisely this reason. But surely Master Manipulator Jessica could feign ignorance and even say it was destined to happen, and is a sign of Alia's similarity to Paul as another prophet and mystic because she is able to function at all. Were the Fremen going to be biased against Alia no matter what, or could Jessica have done anything to mitigate it? Also, on the topic of Alia, how on earth are they going to translate her to screen? A voiceover is a given, but for that eerie physicality, a child actor for the on-screen portrayal is impossible if they keep her about 2 years old. A Baby Genius's move would be a nightmare. A Baby Genius's move would be a nightmare. That's really funny. What's the best option in your opinion? CGI, puppetry, casting call for toddlers exposed to the highest grade psychedelics in utero? Okay, so I mean, the Missionaria Protectiva didn't already have anything in place that was like talking about like, it said the woman, a Bene Gesserit, will come and will bring her son, who is like the fucking guy. Like in this legend, there isn't like, and she'll also bring this cool chick who's fucking like her other daughter. It's chill. It's not a legend, so she can't really use the Missionaria Protectiva. I think that Jessica felt like the common man wouldn't be able to necessarily understand what happened to Alia, and that's why she didn't try to explain it to them, and that's why she kind of kept it under wraps and just like, again, she was playing the hanged man. She was like playing that waiting game where you're just like, I don't know what the right decision is on this, so I'm just not going to make any decision, and I'm just going to let things happen as they happen and just go with it as the universe unfolds. And so that's what she's been doing. Right or wrong, that's what she did because she didn't know what to do. She knew if she had an answer, she would have done it. And so that's why, Hera comes in, and Hera's like, I'm just going to tell the truth. Because Hera, like, the thing is that Jessica is underestimating the comment from it. She is underestimating their ability to understand Alia, and that Alia just needs a good PR person like Hera to help them to understand. And so, she's like open to that suggestion, and it's like, okay, well, that sounds like a good plan. I didn't know what to do. Things are obviously, we can't keep going on like this. You guys obviously see a problem, and you guys have a solution. I listened to it, and I think that you guys are right. So go on with it's a great plan. Let's do it. And the thing is that Alia does go on to be very revered. I mean, she is like a saint, like in her own lifetime, like considered like this fucking, like, she's up there, so, don't worry about her. The anomalous host asks, page 614, but it's well known that repression makes religion flourish. I agree that repression and harsh economic and sometimes political times tend to make religion flourish and allow for growth of fanatics. However, at early points in the book, it tends to encourage harsh climates for the benefit of society, such as by stating that the harsh environments of Arrakis make the Fremen tough. More tough than they initially were from their own origins off-planet. Similar case for the Sardaukar, plus this quote from an earlier section, page 263. There should be a science of discontent. People need hard times and oppression to develop psychic muscles. So I'm seeing conflicting messages here. On the one hand, the novel seems to indicate that religion unchecked is bad. Yet Duke Leto has a philosophy of religion and law being one for the betterment of society, page 444. The Fremen strive for a more hospitable planet, yet making Arrakis more hospitable will potentially make them weak again. So what is the society one should strive for if one is to consider all these points? Should society be ruled by a law of religion, or should it not? Should society have an amount of repression within it, or have none, at the risk of making the society, the majority, weak? Or should the best society have a small amount of religion and a small amount of repression just to keep things balanced in a yin-yang sort of way? What is the optimum image of a civilization that Frank is trying to push here, in your opinion? That's a really great question, the anomalous host. Great question. And that's the thing, is like, going back to the other quote is, the universe isn't a problem to solve, it's a reality to experience. And so I don't think Frank Herbert thinks that there's like, again, like, everybody has pieces of the truth. Like, there's not one thing that we can do that's going to create that utopia, because we're always going to be slaves to our lower selves. And so his big thing is like, we just need to make people more aware and people more educated, and like, he does see the beauty and the repression of, I mean, it is beautiful. Like, the Fremen have been so repressed that they've created this beautiful society, and it is gorgeous, and that it's a jewel. But that's so are all these other things. Like, they're just, it's all a part of the same thing, and you can't really control it. The best you can do, like, the best you can hope for is just to try to get people past laws. I think that he thinks that dogmas are bad. I don't think that he's down, because he is showing how dogma is used and how it's, but at the same time, he's like, that's the universe, It's like, there is no way around it. Like, we do have to just go through these wars. We do have to just go through this shit. So it's like, I don't know. It's the problem. It's like I said, it's a reality to experience. It's a reality to experience. But arbitration's awesome. Trying to better yourself is always great. If being like more ecologically aware is great. I think that he just wants everybody to be a little bit more aware, and if we can all strive to be a little bit more conscientious, a little bit more aware of our actions and the consequences of our actions for our planet, for our fellow man, like, then we'll build a better place no matter what, as long as we're doing that. And also, don't forget to focus on yourselves and don't rely on technology. That's another one of his big things. But it was an excellent question. It was very well thought out, and it was very well written. I appreciate that. Philip Refuse asks, hello, House 19. First, a note of praise. In my childhood, I was a certifiable bookworm. University and work drove that trait out of me in young adulthood, and now Dune Club has driven it back. Thanks so much. Dune Club has gotten me back in touch with my love of reading. Well, great. Great, Philip. I'm excited for you. I love reading too. And I go through waves of it though. Like I'll go through like waves of just like reading a ton of books and then I'll like go watch a ton of movies and then I'll go like watch some shows or something or like, I don't, I just like go through all these different cycles of media. My question this week is, reading Feyd-Rautha and the Baron Harkonnen's exchange at the beginning of book 3 makes me appreciate the fact that Frank Herbert is able to write interactions between wildly different characters with wildly different perspectives, ideas, and natures very believably. It blows my mind how characters like Feyd, the Baron, Jessica, Paul, Howard, etc. express inner thoughts and predict what their dialogue partners are about to say, or how they are about to behave, without ever seeming too intuitive. It all seems to flow naturally, which I find incredible. Are there any real-life lessons we can draw from these exchanges? In other words, are there any hints in Herbert's writing for how we can read people in real life? What should we pay attention to? Cheers from British Columbia, Canada. Well, yeah, you can absolutely, like, take this as a learning lesson. Like, take this as a simulation. Like, watch how these people interact with one another and then learn from it. Totally. Like, be on the lookout. Anything in particular, I would say, is that it does show how fishing works, like the Bene Gesserit show how like there's this thing, it's called fishing. And people who are charlatans will do this thing where they kind of like put these vague questions out there and they say, or make these vague statements and they're looking for an emotional reaction to let them know, to have you give them more information because they're looking for more information so they can continue to prey upon you and make you believe something, that they're trying to manipulate you into believing. And so that's something that Jessica did with the Shout Out Mapes. And that's something Jessica has done with the From My People. Although Stilgar did not. She tried to fish with him a little bit and he was like not taking the bait. And she was like, oh, I'm not going to fish with him because he's too smart for this. And like, I respect him too much to do that. So there's that. You can definitely learn from Jessica. Also, you can learn from, let's see here, what else? I think that the Count Fenring conversation with the Baron was something that was really cool to watch. Like, it was such a good, like, high quality tete-a-tete, cat and mouse conversation. I think that's one to study. If you're ever in that Count Fenring era of your life, or if you're ever the Baron and someone's trying to like call you out, like, it's like, I know that you did this shit, and you can't really cop. Like the Baron does this great thing where he'll never like cop to it like directly, I mean, he'll like, I don't know, it's good. So I mean, the Baron has a lot of interesting lessons too to learn. Plausible deniability. That's something you can learn from the Harkonnens. Plausible deniability, where you're just like, you don't know, it's like I kind of vaguely ordered something, but then if somebody asks me about it, because I mean, people can tell if you lie or not. There are certain people in your life where, I don't know, maybe it's your mom, maybe it's your dad, maybe it's your wife, maybe it's your boyfriend, maybe whoever, but they like ask you a question, and if you lie to them, they're like, shut the fuck up, like the people know, like there's certain people in your life that know when you're full of shit. And yeah, so the Baron having to deal with that sort of stuff, he's like, yeah, I just need to have plausible deniability, and then I can just honestly say I don't know, and then they're not going to call me on my bullshit. So that's how you get around having to lie to people that know when you're lying to them. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff you can learn from, for sure. Lee Prue asks, wait. He's asked me to rate a whole article that I haven't read already. Okay. Sorry, Lee. I haven't read that. Mark Brown, skipping you. Hi, thanks for recommending this book. It may be the best book I've ever read. Spot on with your taste as usual. I was wondering whether you could recommend a few other books that you rate in any genre. Oh, and if you are not doing anything tomorrow, marry me. I'm also free Tuesday. Well, thanks, Mark. I am a bit busy, though. I'm a little busy. I'm going to wash my hair. So, other book recommendations that I would put out there. Let's see here. Other book recommendations. I highly recommend Ender's Game. I think that that's something that's like a must read. I think that's really cool. I think that Ready Player One is coming out next year, so you may want to read Ready Player One. I think that could be that one for me. I enjoyed it. I listened to the audiobook, which was a really good audiobook. And Will Wheaton was like the perfect narrator for that. Yeah, I would highly recommend that one just to get ready. I would think like it just came out, and I mean, I would just encourage you guys to read Stephen King in general. Have you ever been, are you interested in The Shining? Are you interested in it? Are you interested in whatever? Like whatever movie property that you're interested in, go read the book it's based off of. You know, it's good. You'll like it. If you're really weird, try The Dark Tower. The Dark Tower isn't for everybody. It's not for everybody. So, you know, I know that going in. Just if you're really fucking weird, get into The Dark Tower. What else? I know there's like some other books that are like Oh, Tyson recommends Childhood's End by Arthur C. Clarke. You know, there's this one book that my friend gave me that was very much about like Hollywood and like how like you get it is a mystery. Like when you start working in this industry, you see all these like charlatan con men motherfucker who are just playing confidence games, have really no idea what they're doing, and they just take advantage of all these other people, and like they do really well for themselves in this industry. And if you want to understand how that works, I would recommend reading What Makes Sammy Run. It's an older book. It's like set in the I think like 40s or something like that. And I don't know, maybe like 40s, 50s. I don't know. There's no, yeah, the 50s. It's definitely got some, yeah, 40s and 50s. And you see this guy who's like comes up from being this lowly newspaper helper assistant boy to being this big time producer in Hollywood, and like but how he's miserable and how he's built his career on the backs of like all these other artists that he's manipulated, and that one was really interesting. Also, Miss Babylon. Isaac Lopez asks, since CBG or hey CBG, since you know a lot about the zodiac, what birth sign do you think Paul and Fade would be? Thanks for the awesome book club. I would have never had read this book if it weren't for you. It actually changed my life. What would I think Fade and Paul would be? What do I think Fade and Paul would be? What do you think, T? Was that a raising your hand? Oh. I think that I feel like Paul would probably be a Pisces. I feel like Paul would be a Pisces because like they're all about consciousness and like how their consciousness fits in with like the larger consciousness, and they're very like emotional and like, yeah. Paul is definitely a Pisces. Hold on, let me look up hold on, the zodiac wheel. So I'm gonna look up because if Paul is a Pisces, then I believe that Fade would be the opposite on the wheel from him. So I need to look up what the opposite guy is on the wheel from Pisces. Oh, get out of here. Go to images. Pisces. So that it would be Virgo. A Virgo. Okay, so then okay, yeah, so Fade would be a Virgo then, which I don't know if I love Fade as a Virgo, but I could deal with it. I could deal with it because he is technically like a perfectionist. He is into like poisons and stuff like that, and the Virgos are about like balancing things. Like to be able to understand how poisons work in people's bloodstreams, you would have to like have a very intimate knowledge of like chemical balances. And so that makes sense with the Virgo, like analytical, like practical version. So it's like, okay, I could see that. And plus it would be interesting because like, you know, in my opinion, his virginity was taken by the Baron. So I mean, the Virgo thing would be interesting. So yeah, okay. So yeah, Fade's a Virgo, Paul is a Pisces. That's my guess. If I had to pick one. Michael Erickson, do you think that modern nations practice a system of purposeful oppression on their populations as either a preliminary form of military education or even just sort of inoculating people to the terrors of realpolitik? Yeah, well, I mean, it's like, it's all a part of one big system. It's not just like, oh, it's the government, or oh, it's the religion, or oh, whatever. It's like everything kind of working together. It's the economics, it's the religions, the governments, and they all kind of create these like fucked up systems. And like slavery is one of those things. There is always slavery going on, and we haven't stopped doing that. And that's something that is a problem. And so, and then there's slavery in different forms, and there's lots of different versions of it, and different layers and flavors of it. But that's the thing, is like that's how people have power, is like they convince other people below them that they don't have power, and they do it through fear, and like that's an easier way to do it, and it's just like kind of fucked up. And so, it's everyone's to blame here, and also ourselves are to blame because we let ourselves get dragged into this too. I mean, like we're also complicit in this. So, because yeah, I mean, it's like we talk about slavery, like, oh, slavery is something that like didn't that's happened a long time ago, and that's not happening still. And it's like, dude, there's like fucking slaves made this fucking phone essentially. Like these iPhones, like it's fucked up. Like it's really fucked up, And like I hope that like, and I feel like there's a part of me that's like, I shouldn't buy one of these fucking things because like I know what's going on over there, and like it is super not good. But at the same time, I like the idea of using something that's made by super oppressed people to try to help not oppress people. So I feel like in that way, like I can like break the system. And that's how I make it like okay for myself, because I do see how fucked up it is. So yeah, it's just like, and we've been fucked up for thousands of years, and we constantly will be. And people in the future still have slaves. It's a thing. Let me take this is gonna be my last few questions for today. Is there a deeper meaning to Hera telling Jessica that her rug is dirty and that she should clean it more, like telling her to clean her own closet before telling others to clean theirs? It seems subtle but deep, and that is Hera. You're totally onto that, yeah. Like, I think she's totally talking shit in a really nice way, and that's hilarious that she's able to go toe-to-toe with Jessica, because that's how badass Hera is. And let's see here. Princess Irulan quotes Paul as saying, "Yet it is possible to see peril in the finding of ultimate perfection. It is clear that the ultimate pattern contains its own fixity. In such perfection, all things move towards death. Is he referring to the pursuit of perfection, or himself as the product of that pursuit?" asks Matthew Raymond. And it's talking about how perfection is death. Like, I mean, things like perfection is when things are so great that they don't need to grow anymore, and they don't need to change anymore. That's what perfection is. And so it's like, but when you reach that state of perfection and you're no longer growing or changing, then you're dying, like, and so I think that's what it's referring to. You can use it on a lot of different levels. Like you can think of this, take this idea and apply it to a lot of different things. It's a really flexible metaphor. Mark Jake asks, "Hello, Khaleesi, loving Dune Club so much. For a few chapters, I felt that Frank Herbert was promoting a system of combat to find the fittest and failed to see the flaws in that system. With the last reading, it seems that he's finally addressing those flaws. The women in the siege realize that if Paul fights Stilgar, they will lose one of the two, and that the siege needs both of them. Why, in your opinion, has the Fremen Society failed to see this problem with their methods until now? Do the men see the problem, or only the women? I have not read ahead. Maybe these questions are answered in the next chapters. Do you think that the larger Imperial Society has the same weakness with its warfare between the so-called great houses?" And like the thing is the Fremen Society is gearing up to like try to make a stab at taking over the entire Imperium. And so things have changed. Like in the past, they had this system of survival of the fittest, and that worked because that was just working for them at the time. Now it doesn't work, and they have this bigger problem. They're not just living on the day to day, and so they do need all of their strength because they're making a push right now, and so that this doesn't make sense to them anymore. And of course, the women see it first. The men don't, because I think men do appreciate laws a lot more. Like they like those laws. They don't, like they like that shit a little bit more. Structure is a very male thing. And women are a little bit more accepting. So we're like, yeah, that made sense for a while. It's not really making sense right now. So like maybe we shouldn't just blindly do some shit. Maybe we should just like stop and like talk about this for a minute. And they're totally right. But, they like Paul's gonna, Paul sees that too. Like, and it's just like, again, it's just like any society. I mean, everybody gets in these things where, you know, this is how it's done. This is how it's done. And people just do things because that's how it's done. And that's how they've been told that that's how things are done. And people just follow that. Like, the Fremen do it, and we do it, and the people in the past have done it, and the people in the future will do it. And, like, it's what we fucking do over and over again is we make up all these rules for ourselves and then follow them. So, yeah. All right, guys. Well, that's it for my questions from Patreon. Since Vicky isn't here, we can't do questions from you guys on Twitch, and we've already been going for like 2 hours. So we are going to do the session 10 recap. It's going to be up soon. We're going to re-upload it, and then we're going to put it on the channel. We'll also put it on YouTube pretty soon. So you can check it out. Sorry that we had technical difficulties. Again, thank you so much for bearing with me. You guys are the best little Dune clubbers out there. I'm a little bit of a mess. You guys are so nice to just deal with all this. All right. Well, bye, guys. You have a wonderful rest of your Sunday. And I'll see you next Sunday for Dune Club Session 11.